Hi there, and thank you for joining me for this spotlight session. And as usual, I am going live every Monday with a spotlight on a specific area of growth. And for the last few weeks, we have been talking about labels, labels that people put on us when they don't really have the whole picture, or maybe they don't even care to figure out what's going on. They just see things and then they react without really understanding what's going on behind the scenes. So let's talk for a little bit about that. So today we're talking about the label of being disengaged. So where you're disengaged, maybe people say you act distant or you're not as invested as you used to be. I can remember a season when people that I worked with said that about me, that I seemed like I was disengaged or that I wasn't invested or I wasn't being a team player. And the truth was, I wasn't checking out. I was tuning in. And to other people, it might look like you're disengaging. You are you just don't care anymore. But for years, and maybe you did too, for years, I was over investing my time and my energy and even my emotions into things that didn't align with my values, with what I held near and dear to my heart. I was over investing based on other people's expectations for me and what they wanted me to do and how they wanted me to do it. And when you're in education specifically, there are very rigid guidelines for how they want you to do things. And I finally noticed after a long time that I needed to find things that actually fueled me, not draining me dry. And I want to know if you've ever felt this way. You know, you can put it in the chats. If you're listening here on YouTube, you can put it down there in the comments. Have you ever been labeled disengaged? Or I guess something similar to that, where people got the feeling that you were just not as invested as you used to be. And actually, all you were doing is protecting your peace. And it might not even be the word disengaged, but just people treating you like you are not who they thought you were, or you don't care the way you used to. And it might seem to them, or they want you to feel like they think you're disinterested anymore, any now. You lack motivation. And for high achievers, especially who've always been the reliable one, when we start pulling back a little bit, people think that we're quitting or we're not giving it our best. And in reality, that is our clarity showing up. It's our spirit whispering. You don't have to give your all to something that no longer feels right. It's no longer in your best interest. It could be emotionally, it could be financially, it could be maybe even in a spiritual sense, your resources matter. And when you decide to kind of set the parameters a little differently, sometimes people see it as a negative. But in this series on labels, we're talking about making sure that you have a clear vision for what's actually going on under the surface, whether they understand or not. What's important is that you do. So I want you to think about this. What's one area in your life right now that you feel a subtle tug to step back, to distance yourself just a bit, not out of apathy, but out of personal alignment? So, is there an area in your life where you feel just the least bit of tug, that it's not 100% aligned with where you're going at the moment? And I see that Willow mentioned about disengaged at school when I was trying to protect myself, surviving bullying from classmates. And I'll tell you what, bullying doesn't only happen in the classroom. And I know you're probably familiar with this yourself. It sometimes happens in families. It happens between siblings, regardless of your age. It happen in your social circles. And so sometimes we need to step back and we need to give it some thought and gently, not like very abruptly just walking away. Sometimes that's necessary, but when you become more discerning, then you are asking yourself those better questions. And I was talking about this the other day when I was on a call with someone, getting better at asking the questions instead of just doing, giving, and over investing. And I always felt for a long time that when I gave it my best, regardless of what was going on, that I was that I needed to do that. I needed to give it my best. And I do feel like that's essential, but giving your best doesn't mean that you have to give your all. So I wonder if you know the distinction I'm trying to make here. So there are times when giving your best doesn't mean that you carry everything. So think about a situation that we brought up just a few minutes ago, an area in your life where you feel there's maybe a subtle need to just step back a little bit, to really question whether or not all of this heaviness that you're carrying is yours to carry. Ask yourself, is this truly mine to carry? This worry, this stress over something, particularly when you're in relationships. And sometimes they're a bit one-sided. Another question you can ask yourself is, does this align with what matters most to me right now? Just because you've always done it doesn't mean you have to continue to do it. You can do it in a different way. You can choose to do it at certain times and other times bow out. Or maybe things that you felt were sustainable at one point are just not sustainable anymore. And you can probably think of some areas that fit right in with this. So these are the reframes, becoming more discerning in what you do, deciding whether or not this is yours to fully carry, whether or not this aligns to what is happening in your life now at this stage in life. Does it still bring purpose, or is it meeting the needs that need to be met in a way that helps the situation, or does it I don't know, are you enabling the situation instead of improving a situation? Are you enabling a situation by doing certain things? And when it comes to those times where there's a fine line between you doing your best, giving your support, and enabling. I can think of so many different situations in my life, at work, in my personal life, where there was that line, that boundary, that there were times when I just stepped over the line and just overinvested. Let me just put it that way. And one way you can tell when you're overinvesting in whatever scenario is when you're feeling pressure in what you're doing. You're feeling guilted into doing it. That's where that discernment piece comes in. And that's where it is so important for you to utilize emotional intelligence, your emotional intelligence. And it's emotional intelligence in motion. It is that sacred moment between a stimulus and a response, a request or an expectation, and your reaction or your response. When you start to choose peace or practicality over proving or overdoing what's always been expected of you in that situation. So you're no longer reactive. Emotional intelligence helps you to be more responsive, to act out of a grounded spirit, and to be selective where your attention and your resources and your energy flows. So I'd like for you to take a breath right now. This really is kind of a heavy subject. And but I want you to think about it. Take a deep breath and think of one commitment right now that feels heavy. It could be something that you've volunteered to do. It could be something that you've committed to doing on a regular basis, and you're finding that it's not in your best interest. It feels heavy. And if you want to release it, if you didn't have that heaviness, what would expand in its place? So think about it. If you are feeling overcommitted in whatever way, feeling heavy, feeling stretched thin, think about if you were able to release that, what could expand in its place? So I'd like for you to type it in the chat or in the comments, or even just write it down for yourself. This is where clarity starts, just becoming more aware of where you are expending your energy and becoming more discerning. It might look like you are disengaging, but you and I both know that you are becoming more discerning. So let's pause for just a minute for kind of a mini reset. And for one of these anchor moments that we talk about in our clarity challenge, I want you to just take a slow inhale for 4 counts. Just slowly inhale. And then exhale for 4. Now, silently finish this sentence. I give myself permission to invest my energy where, and then you fill it out. You put that in the blank. I give myself permission to invest my energy where, and you fill it out. You write it down and see what comes to mind for you. So if this message hits home, if you're realizing some of your disengagement is really discernment and you're ready for some deeper clarity, that's exactly what we practice in the Clarity Challenge. And we have one coming up tomorrow. It is simply a 90-minute session where we stop. We work together to kind of help you identify what is draining you, what might be triggering you, and then shifting to spend more time on what lights you up. And then we help you create a plan of anchor moments that honor your energy. So I would love for you to come and join us. It's free, it's calming, it's practical. Because when you stop overinvesting in what drains you, you make space for what truly sustains you. So if you'd like, I'll put the link to register for the upcoming Clarity Challenge. And let's get rid of those labels that people are giving us and lean into that discernment and peace that is going to sustain us much better than overinvesting, overcommitting, bowing down to other people's expectations. So thank you for joining me for this spotlight session on labels. So we will talk to you next time. And like I said, I'll put the link down in the comments for you to join us. Bye-bye.